Hello and welcome to Candidates Up Front, a public interest election program of Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. I'm Bill Litvin, a member of the League. Our November 8th general election is coming up. We will vote for state and federal officials. The deadline to register is October 24th. The League is interviewing candidates who agreed to be interviewed in contested races. For each race, the candidates will get the same basic questions and will have the same amount of time to answer them. Two candidates are competing in the 126th Pennsylvania House District, Democrat Mark Rozzi and Republican James D. Oswald. The district includes Laureldale, Mount Penn, Muhlenberg, Lower Alsace, St. Lawrence, parts of the city of Reading, and parts of Exeter Township. State representatives serve a 2-year term in the state legislature in Harrisburg. They initiate legislation and vote to create laws. They pass the budget, including taxes and expenditures of the state. They help constituents with issues regarding state government. The salary for a state representative is $90,335 per year, plus benefits and expenses. Please note that the opinions expressed in this interview are those of the candidate and are not the opinions of the League of Women Voters or Berks Community Television. This interview is with James D. Oswald. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Oswald, please tell our viewers about yourself and why you are running.
I graduated from Antietam High School. I've lived there in Lower Alsace Township my whole life. I joined the Navy right out of high school, did 20 and a half years in the United States Navy Seabees. I've been a volunteer firefighter and an EMT for the last 30 years, and I've been a Lower Alsace Township supervisor for the last 17 years. In those 17 years, I've seen a lot of things, how the state affects small municipalities, and I decided it was time to try and run for a state representative to see if I could make some change in some of the issues that have affected us.
You are a Republican. What draws you to your party?
Most of their beliefs were the same as mine, the conservative values.
Okay, and are there things about your party you are not comfortable with?
Of course, I don't think anyone's ever 100% happy with their party, but that's, you got to pick the best parts of it.
Okay, it's two choices, one or the other.
Yeah.
And there's a few others, but they're not running. In the General Assembly, your party will want you to vote the party line. People who voted for you want you to vote their views. People who did not vote for you still expect you to represent their views. And then you have your own ideas. How will you balance these expectations? Tell us your thinking process.
I think of myself as a public servant, not as a politician. I was voted by the people, and that's who I will represent. There are times when if the party line makes sense, I'll vote party line. But if the party line doesn't make sense, I'm not going to vote party line. I will go what's best for my constituents.
On the first day of the legislative session, you will be asked to approve the rules of conducting business. These rules allow committee chairs who represent only 17% of Pennsylvanians to block legislation even if the majority of legislators support it. Should these rules stay as they are or be changed?
I was unaware of this, and I'd have to do more research on it. But I would think that maybe there's time for a change there, because you're there to represent all the people, not just a select few.
Okay, if there's an opportunity for you, if you have a website that you can put more thoughts down about that, and we'll link your website to the vote411.org website, which the League sponsors, and that way voters can get to your website and find out your thoughts on that, because it is a really critical issue. Lately, to get around the government's veto pen, the legislature has written constitutional amendments to be voted on in primary elections which have low turnout. In the long run, do you feel it is appropriate to enshrine in our state constitution things that are normally handled legislatively?
Well, in the last 2 years since COVID, our current governor I think has vetoed some things that definitely should not have been vetoed. So if that was the way to get around it, that's what that's what the representatives in the legislature had to do. Yeah.
Well, but obviously he won't be governor.
Right. So, but the other issue is that there's one party that has a tendency to show up for every election, and then the other party only seems to come out for the major elections. So, if they're playing by the rule, they're playing by the rules. If the other side decides not to show up for these votes, that's not their fault.
Everyone I know is pro-life, but it means different things to different people. Ending gun violence is pro-life. Preventing climate change, protecting endangered species, being against abortion, being in favor of choice on abortion, universal health care, ending the death penalty, all pro-life. On which of these issues or other issues do you consider yourself pro-life?
Well, obviously, I think this question should be broken into many other questions, but I am pro-life as far as pregnancy goes. As far as ending gun violence, I mean, there's more guns in the United States than there are people. So if guns were truly the problem, I think we'd all be gone already. So I don't think gun violence is a gun problem. I think it's a mental health issue that needs to be dealt with. As far as protecting endangered species, obviously we should protect endangered species. And ending the death penalty, I do not see an issue with the death penalty. What I have an issue with is people that are pro-abortion but anti-death penalty, and I don't understand that with people. I don't understand how you can be okay with killing a baby before it's had a chance to do anything wrong, but a person who's a mass murderer, you're okay with letting them survive. I just have a real problem with that.
Are there, back to the part of your answer then, are there gun laws that you would advocate for?
Well, I mean, gun laws that make sense. But again, it's, I know I have a lot of friends that own a lot of guns, and those guns have never done any damage to anyone. So I can't blame the gun. When a drunk driver kills somebody, we blame the drunk driver and not the car. But when someone shoots somebody, we blame the gun and not the person behind the trigger. It makes no sense.
Pregnancy is not benign. In the United States, for every 100,000 pregnant women, 23.8 die during or soon after pregnancy. This is much, much higher than other developed nations. It especially hits minorities and rural women. Does Pennsylvania have a responsibility to provide more support to pregnant women to prevent these deaths?
I don't know, without doing research, how much is already out there for women's health. But obviously we should do whatever we can to prevent the deaths of babies.
Well, actually, this is talking about the women.
Oh, the women. I'm sorry. Well, we should
This is
whatever we can to
23.8 women die.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question. Then, even so, even with the women, we should do whatever we can to prevent the deaths of women.
Maybe like Family Leave Act or free health care for pregnant women, anything along those lines?
Whatever works.
Funding for rural hospitals? Okay.
Whatever works.
Okay. The Pennsylvania legislature recently voted to spend $20 million to help religious institutions and schools add security to their buildings. The money is much appreciated, but with every invention of another weapon, we need to up the security again. Gun violence costs the United States $557 billion annually. For perspective, that's more than 10 times Pennsylvania's annual budget. It's police, ambulances, hospital emergency rooms, and ongoing care for the wounded. These costs add to inflation. What can the legislature do to reduce gun violence and reduce the cost to taxpayers and to the companies that provide health care to their employees?
Well, I believe, one, they need to secure the schools better, and I believe the state needs to put officers in the schools themselves. I come from Antietam School District, which is the highest tax school district in the county, but we have no commercial tax base to help support our taxes. Mm-hmm. So, it's always been a stretch when they talk about trying to get police security in the buildings. But the state could easily take care of that, and they don't seem to be jumping at that. So, I don't think the guns are the issue. I think, in almost every case we've had in the past of a school shooting, people knew that it was going to happen, and either people didn't want to say something because they didn't want to offend somebody, or the policing agencies got the information and didn't act on it. So, it's not the fault of the gun. It's the fault of people not responding the way they should respond to these situations. I mean, as an ambulance person and as a firefighter, I mean, I know this could happen at my school and I'd end up responding to it. But I just think it falls on the hands of the state legislator to put more enforcement into this.
Berks County is 50% agricultural. We know growing seasons have changed. So far this summer, Pennsylvania has been spared the massive destruction of wildfires and floods occurring in some other states, but storms are more destructive, and currently we're in a drought. Should Pennsylvania do more to protect our economy by doing more to prevent climate change? What actions do you think the legislature should or shouldn't take?
Well, I believe it's the climate change part. I believe it's cyclical, because I remember, in my 59 years, and I've grown up in a farm community. So I've seen years where we had drought. I've seen years where we had a lot of rain. It just goes back and forth. This is just the year for drought. So I don't know. There's a lot that we can do to affect that. But when there's an issue for the farmers, if the farmers lose their crops, I believe the state should step in and try to help the farmers, so that they can survive and make it to the next year's planting season.
Okay. Would there be anything on the types of energy that we use that you'd think would be, or not?
I have an opinion about that. I mean, at this point, I am not part of the Green New Deal, because I have friends that work at Deca Battery. I know Deca Battery is getting into lithium batteries, and they're telling me that there's no real good way to recycle lithium batteries. So, instead of having dirty air, we're going to have dirty land, because they're going to have to do something with all these batteries. The wind turbines are the same thing. The propellers aren't recyclable, so what are we going to do with them? Just bury them? So and the amount of energy that's wasted to bring the raw materials out of the ground to make these lithium batteries, and that, I question whether the end result is going to be a real net gain.
The 2022-2023 state budget contains large increases for education funding, but it's a one-year thing. We have 500 school districts in Pennsylvania, most of which rely heavily on the property tax because the legislature hasn't agreed to a long-range plan for school funding. And we have charter schools that pull $2.6 billion from the public schools budgets. Some say Pennsylvania's charter school law doesn't provide the transparency and accountability that is required of our public schools. Two questions. What is your view on how Pennsylvania funds both public schools and charter schools, and do we need charter school reform?
First off, on school funding, I'm a firm believer that we need to eliminate school property tax, and put it on a sales tax, and if some other generator needs to be done, that way everyone pays the bill. Because the reality is, people say renters pay taxes too. The only way a renter pays his fair share of school property tax is if he's renting the whole house. If it's a 2-unit, he's only paying 50%. So, I mean, if you put it on sales tax, you're getting everybody. You get the people that are driving through the state and are just stopping to visit. They're helping to offset those costs. Second, I believe 500 school districts is way too many school districts. I believe, we should be going to a county school system, with the exception of if you have a large city in that county, that city school district stays its own. But all the rest should fall under an umbrella of a county school district. They could still have their own football teams and their own baseball teams, but it would be so much easier for budgeting. You would only be dealing with one insurance company, one teachers union that you'd have to fight with, and I believe it would save a lot of money there. As far as charter schools, I'm not real familiar with charter schools. I would have to do more research on charter schools, but from what when I see on the news and that, I believe that there needs to be more transparency with charter schools to make sure that the money they're getting and how they're spending their funds falls in line with what we need.
Pennsylvania is one of 9 states with closed primary elections. The primary is the spring election, when the main parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, choose their candidates. And unless there happens to be a nonpartisan question on the ballot, only Democrats and Republicans can vote. Some states have open primaries where all voters choose candidates. Research has shown that states with open primaries have more moderate or centrist candidates, while states with closed primaries have candidates who are more radical to the left or the right. Should Pennsylvania change how we run our primary elections? Please tell us why you feel that way.
I believe it's been that way since the beginning, and it's worked well since then. So I don't know that there's a need to change it. Although I have friends who are members of other parties, and I understand their concerns whenever they complain about the election. I'd be willing to look into it.
Okay. The largest growing percentage of voters is nonpartisan or
Correct.
third party. Compared to other states, Pennsylvania has rather weak laws on campaign finance limits and enforcement, and there are loopholes in the disclosure laws that apply to lobbyists. Lawmakers aren't banned from taking gifts. Do you feel these laws need to be strengthened, or are Pennsylvania's laws fine for Pennsylvania?
No, I believe these laws need to be changed. I know currently watching the commercials for one of the federal offices, the one person keeps complaining about the other person being from not being from Pennsylvania, but yet the person who's complaining about that, when you look at his campaign money, most of his campaign money is coming from out of state. So it's like, it's kind of the pot calling
The kettle.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
there's a lot of conversation that could be had there, but we'll move on. Pennsylvania's election law is out of date. In the past 3 years, there have been some hastily made legislative changes that didn't work out the way some legislators thought they would. We've had disagreements and court cases on how these hastily written laws should be interpreted. We've lost election officials because the job became so stressful due to constant changes. Certainly, there's a more reasonable way to bring our election code up to date. What kind of changes, if any, would you like to see in our election code?
Well, I believe ID should be a requirement to go vote. You can't see the doctor without an ID. You can't buy a six-pack of beer without an ID. You can't buy cigarettes without an ID. You basically can't live anymore without an ID, but yet they want to let you go vote without an ID. I just think that's a ridiculous thing. So I think we should have it that you have to show your ID to vote, and if voting is truly your most important right, you would think you would crawl through a swamp to get there, and yet people want to be able to vote from home. If you're handicapped or disabled, I understand that. But just because you want to vote from home because it's convenient, I don't think that's the answer. I think you should, and I don't believe in ballot boxes. The ballot box is outside the courthouse. I believe you should have to go to your polling precinct and vote in person.
Okay. Do you think it would be helpful if legislators had to work in a county election services office, maybe 2 different counties, to get a feel for how elections are processed before they or you come up with new election regulations?
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. But the other thing is the people that work in these election offices. I've heard stories, and I don't know if they're true or not, about how the poll watchers or the count watchers, how they were kept back a certain distance that they couldn't even really see what they were doing. So I question, how well the whole process is.
Founding Father Alexander Hamilton fought for and set up the Federal Reserve Bank to set monetary policy. It is not in the Constitution, but it is the driving force in handling inflation. Inflation is not a problem the Pennsylvania legislature can solve, so we haven't asked you how you would solve it.
That's good.
That said, should the legislature consider the inflationary or deflationary aspects of every bill it considers? If so, how far forward should we look?
Well, I believe in any time you're looking at a bill, you should look at how it's going to affect the people of Pennsylvania, and you have to have the foresight to look down the road and see if at least a couple of years down the road to see what the end game is going to be on anything you do. I mean, something that sounds good today, like I heard the governor wants to give $2,000 to people, now, and it's like that's great, but then our great grandkids are going to end up paying that bill, and I don't think it's fair to dump that price tag on our great grandchildren with no effect, nothing to say about it.
Okay, we have I think we have 2 minutes left for you. Would you like to make a closing statement?
Yes. I believe the Founding Fathers had things pretty much the right way, And I think our founding fathers right now are rolling over in their graves at the way government is being run. They probably have brush burns on their bones from rolling over in their graves. I think we need to get back to basics, and we need to streamline things. As a township official, I have a road that was paved a few years ago through a state grant, and we had to put the ADA pads in the middle of a road that's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it just made no sense. There's no one ever going to be there that's going to need that ADA pad. And then on the side of the road, there's an ADA ramp that goes into a cement wall. I mean, but that was probably $8,000 worth of engineering and construction costs that, were not needed, but because of PennDOT's silly rules, we had to do it. And if I'm elected, one of the things I want to do is go into PennDOT and try to streamline some of these rules that just make no sense to the small municipalities, because they just cost the municipalities too much money. There's a lot of other departments, but I don't have the time.
No, you do have the time. Go
I
ahead.
do have the time. But I would like to know. I would like to know where all the lottery money goes. I mean, I was talking to one person who was interviewing someone from the state lottery, trying to figure out where all the money goes from the lottery. And the person they talked to said that, well, the money goes to help senior citizens with their prescriptions. Well, Medicare helps them with their prescriptions. So is it really doing what it's supposed to do? I believe when the PA lottery was originally started up, it was supposed to help them with property tax. Likewise, when gambling was brought to Pennsylvania, it was supposed to help us with property tax. And we've seen nothing. So if I'm elected, I have a lot of things I want to look at.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Oswald, for sharing your views with us. Viewers, please remember there is another candidate for the, whoops. Make sure I got the right, I have the
126th.
126. Yeah, it says something different on my sheet here, which is why I was confused. Sorry about that. Please remember there is another candidate for the 126th Pennsylvania House District, Democrat Mark Rossi. You can see that interview on both of these interviews on BCTV's website or YouTube page. To check your voting status, please go to vote.pa.gov. You can register, change your party, locate your polling place, or apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. The deadline to register is October 24th. Do it sooner, please. The deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is November 1st. Do it sooner, please. Then please check out the League's online voter's guide, vote411.org, to confirm your new voting district and to get more information on the candidates. Or contact Berks County Election Services. And you can see the email address there. It's elections@countyofberks.com, or their phone number, 610-478-6490. So I'll repeat, vote.pa.gov, vote411.org, elections@countyofberks.com, and 610-478-6490. Thank you for watching Candidates Up Front. I'm Bill Litvin. Good day.